balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic. Providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective with me, your host, Rick. First of all, hopefully everybody I've seen, several of my Florida Whiskey Warriors have checked in, and things so far haven't been that bad. However, of course, it's early. I don't think that Helene or Helena or Helenane or whatever has made landfall yet. So the worst, I guess, unfortunately, is yet to come. But please, prayers up for all of my Whiskey Warriors and others that are in the essentially blast zone. Oh, I guess I'm being corrected on my pronunciation. It's Helena or Helene. Anyway, depending upon who you ask. Oh my gosh. Oh, Judge Wild trying to take a little bit of the famous hat here. That's all right. You got to have the face for the hat. That's what it is. You got to have the proper face. Anyway. Oh, believe me, coming from someone that has a face for radio, I know looking, how looks can be deceiving and stuff like that. Mark on Facebook land has also checked in. Nothing but wind, apparently, for him. He's made it, his quote, he made it, but he's getting blown away. So we've got, Mark, Amy, Bonnie, and 3 Chevy. All four are somewhat in the path of Helene or Halina, however you want to pronounce it. So anyway, prayers up for all of you and for anyone else who might be watching who are also part of that storm that's coming online. So, all right, let's go ahead and just get things kicked off. I've got G up for tonight's Pledge of Allegiance. Oh my gosh, I'm getting hammered by my pronunciation of the stupid storm's name. But anyway, all right. I guess they've had some tornado warnings over by Bonnie and that kind of stuff. So anyway, let's get on with it. G, for those of you that don't know, that is Ms. T's significant other. I'll just call it that. G is up with his version of the Pledge of Allegiance. So please, if you are of mine, stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one. If not, put your hand over your heart and join in with G in his recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And of course, I thank you, G, and all of the other folks that are out there who have submitted their versions of the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to hear your version of the Pledge of Allegiance, it's really pretty simple. All you have to do is record yourself doing it in your style, and then, of course, take that audio file and email it to me at fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation for that. All right. Tonight's sponsor is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission: to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online, or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, you can go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Take a look at this thing. An 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. And check out that binding. Let me tell you, folks, they didn't cheap out on glue here. They put in an actual stitching all the way through the leather, as you can see. It has a 100-year warranty against materials and workmanship defects. If something happens in that 100 years from your date of purchase, you can return it to them and they will either fix it or replace it for free. It has rounded corners that I'm told by my rumblers that they are kind of thick, and they don't poke you in the butt or the chest wherever you plan on keeping this pocket-sized U.S. Constitution. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and of course my youngest whiskey warrior has made sure that the internal contents are accurate to get you your civics badge in Scouts. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online to get yours today. And don't forget, while you are there, to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's wonderful products and information. And I thank them for allowing me to be an affiliate. All right. Well, Kamala Harris made another appearance on television last night. And yes, you notice I did not say the word interview because, let's face it, it was more of a sycophantic conversation between Stephanie Ruhle, at least I think her name is Stephanie. Let me just see. I know it's Ruhle, but yeah, Stephanie Ruhle. And she's already said that, Kamala Harris doesn't need to answer any questions. Although it was kind of interesting, her viewpoint after the interview, which I'll get to in just a moment. But there were 5 specific embarrassing moments. And again, I'm telling you, folks, the more that Kamala Harris speaks, the worse it gets for her. So hiding her in the basement like they did with Biden is actually maybe not a bad idea. But realistically, it doesn't give the electorate the kind of answers that they are looking for this. So let's move on here and let me get this up and show you. This is from the Federalist, 5 embarrassing moments from Kamala Harris's MSNBC, sycophantic discussion. So the first one was, the first question, of course, was that Ruhle asked Harris about her economic vision, noting that lots of Americans don't see themselves in your plans. Well, that's true, but they also talked a little bit about things that were going on. And honestly, Stephanie, for her, shall we say, her sycophantic viewpoint, she did at least try to keep Kamala Harris tiny bit honest. Because well, I mean, here, let's just get to the first first clip here.
Polling shows that most likely voters still think Donald Trump is better to handle the economy. Why do you think that is?
Well, here's what I know in terms of the facts. Donald Trump left us with the worst economy since the Great Depression when you look at, for example, the employment numbers.
It was during COVID, and employment was so high because we shut down the government, we shut down the country.
Even before the pandemic, he lost manufacturing jobs by most people's estimates, at least 200,000. He lost manufacturing plants, ask the auto workers.
Okay. Let's start with the first obvious thing. They're just repeating the talking points, which essentially is that, Donald Trump lost manufacturing jobs before the pandemic. Well, that's wrong. They didn't. And actually, Greg Price, as you can see here who posted the video on X, as you can see right here, he corrected him and said that America actually added 414,000 manufacturing jobs in the first 38 months of the Trump admin. And we know for a fact that the Biden camp, White House has been inflating the jobs numbers for years. So anyway, yeah, but, right. CNN, of course, reported too that presided over a gain of 414,000 U.S. manufacturing jobs. And of course, that was prior to the pandemic, which the pandemic, of course, these leftists, they keep going after this pandemic. They keep talking about the pandemic as though it were something that was, just a matter of fact. It just sort of happens and blah, blah, blah. Not that it is, the first one in literally decades, the first ever economic shutdown in our history. We didn't even shut down during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. So, it's just, they seem to think, for whatever reason, the left seems to think that the American people don't understand that it was mostly their policies, mostly their governors, mostly their attacks, and let's not even mention Dr. Fauci, who basically shut everything down. So, come on. So anyway, Rule then went on and was asking Harris about the taxes and, talking about how she's going to pay for her socialist style policies. Well, let's take a listen to what the answer was.
I don't know what's going to happen next year. Under a Harris administration, at what income level should someone expect their taxes to go up? And that state and local tax deduction that's currently capped and matters to a lot of people in blue states, are you going to lift that cap?
So, first of all, when it relates to anybody making less than $400,000 a year, your taxes will not go up. Your taxes will not go up. And in fact, under my plan, taxes for 100 million Americans will actually be cut, including $6,000 a year for young couples for the first year of their child's life in a tax cut, a tax credit, essentially, by expansion of the child tax credit. And why is that? Because during the first year of a young couple, of a person's child's life, they are going to need help buying a crib, buying a car seat. And we all benefit when they're actually able to do what they naturally want to do to take care of their child.
And expanding that child tax credit, or you mentioned housing before, giving that extra money for a first home. If you can't raise corporate taxes, or if GOP takes control of the Senate, where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to make sure that the biggest corporations and billion.
Okay, wait a minute. I got to stop right here. Did you see the vapor lock that hit Kamala Harris's brain when she attempted to think, okay, where do I go with this question? Because again, think about the question, which I mean, I'm going to give Stephanie Ruhle at least a tiny smidgen of credit here. She did point out, what happens if you can't do this? How are you going to take care of this? How are you going to pay for all of these things if you cannot raise taxes? And notice too that Stephanie actually points out the correct scenario, which is that Congress is the one that has to raise taxes. Okay? Congress is the one that has to change the tax code, not Kamala Harris. The president doesn't have that power. But she sat there for a good 2-3 seconds while her mind was going through and trying to figure out, okay, how do I respond to this? It was funny. She went into, she basically went into vapor lock. It was hilarious. I thought that was great. But anyway, let's continue with the clip.
Billionaires pay their fair share. That's just it.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I cut this. Yeah. Millionaires and billionaires paying their fair share. Corporate taxes paying their fair share. Okay. First of all, the top 1% pay roughly 38 to 40% of the entire tax burden for the entire United States of America. Okay. Okay, maybe it's the top 15% that do that, but the top 1% pay like 38% in taxes already in the highest tax bracket. What part of how much is their fair share, which ironically should be the question. Now, John Stossel was interviewing Reverend Al Sharpton many years ago, and Al Sharpton tried to answer it and was saying that the top percent or the top people at the top of the bracket were only paying like less than 5% in taxes, which again is a talking point of the Democrats, but also is a misnomer. The reason why it sounds like that is because they keep talking about all these loopholes and everything that these billionaires and millionaires are supposedly taking advantage of, yet they don't tell you that the IRS itself tells you that they pay 38 to 40% of the entire tax burden. Okay. If you want to go after people who are not paying taxes, seriously, you want to go after people who are not paying taxes? It's the bottom half of Americans that get their money back. Now, I'm not saying that we should do that, although I do believe that a simple way or a way to simplify the tax code is pretty simply just put in one straight percentage across the board. Okay, across the board. For everybody. And that way everybody puts their piece in the pie and, that's just it. You don't get any kind of refunds or anything like that. But regardless, that'll never happen. Okay. But regardless, they're still on the talking point of, well, we got to go after the corporate taxes. We got to go after the super uber rich, which what are they going to do when the super uber rich decide to leave the country? And no longer pay taxes, period. They're going to move it on down. And trust me, even if statistics have shown that even if you took every single penny from the super uber rich, okay, if you took every single penny of the super uber rich, you would only fund the government for maybe 6 months. That's how much of a hole that we're actually in. Okay. So anyway, let's continue on with the clip.
It's about paying their fair share. I am not mad at anyone for achieving success, but everyone should pay their fair share. And it is not right that the teachers and the firefighters that I meet every day across our country are paying a higher tax than the richest people in our country.
Bill Gates just said it this week. If he was
Okay, and once again, that is bullshit. I'm sorry, it just is. She is not right. Anyway, all right. Let me back out of this one because I mean it just goes on and on from there. As far as that goes. Now, she also, of course, got into her word salad scenario, which is essentially very, very commonplace whenever she's caught in essentially trying to explain something that she herself doesn't even understand. Take a listen. I hate it when this does this. Does it on X a lot. Does it on X for the things on X. So let's see. Where was it? There it is.
And assistance to state and local governments around transit dollars. And looking holistically at the connection between that and housing. And looking holistically at the incentives we in the federal government can create for local and state governments to actually engage in planning in a holistic manner that includes prioritizing affordable housing.
Okay. So, what? We want to look at everything holistically because when you look at holistic things holistically, you can holistically find the holistic nature of the holistic thing. All right. She has this commonality where she'll find a word that she believes is going to be the word of the day. And, you know, it could be one or two or three words. It just depends. But she falls into this scenario where all she does is repeat herself over and over and over again. I mean, you know, looking at the passage of time, because the significance of the passage of time is the fact that the passage of time is significantly passing. I mean, that's her word salad. And whenever she gets asked a question, it's whenever she gets asked a question that she absolutely cannot answer. And this is who you want to go up against people, very, very shrewd people, such as Vladimir Putin. Yeah. Anyway, so she was asked about the Teamsters Union as well. Which, well, her answer is sort of interesting.
He saw them. There was an emotional connection. But what he didn't do was deliver policy. In the last 4 years, we have seen huge wins in this country for unions, but not all unions have gotten behind you. I want to understand, when the Teamsters decided not to endorse you, what was their reasoning? What are they looking for?
Well, let me go back to our just previous conversation. I'm very proud to have the endorsement of the steelworkers and almost every other major union in America because I stand by workers. And
Okay, so Kamala Harris. Oh, I love that. That was fantastic. I stopped her right where she looks stupid. That's cool. Anyway, moving on. So first of all, let's just clarify. She's been endorsed by the union leaders. She is not endorsed by the rank and file. I went through this before. The union rank and file is predominantly for Donald Trump. So anyway, to continue with this.
Stand by the importance of being able to join a union and to understand the benefit and the value of unions. And I understand the importance of investing in new industries and working actively with the private sector to grow our economy.
But I'm asking because there's this idea we want something more from her. What is it?
Well, here's the thing, that back to your point about previous election cycles, Donald Trump made a whole lot of promises that he did not meet, and one would argue broke. Look at Lordstown. He said he was going to...
Don't sell your homes.
Yeah, don't sell your homes. And what happened? It shut down. Outsourcing under Donald Trump. His policies that are about putting, tens to hundreds of % tariffs.
John Deere.
Yes. Yes. So part of the challenge, and
Okay, so I've got to address that John Deere thing. If you listen to the entire clip, of Donald Trump, the entire context of what he is talking about, he was basically laying out that John Deere should not send its manufacturing over to Mexico, because if they do, they would get a tariff on their products and services coming into the country, which means essentially that John Deere, which was in the deciding phase, by the way, it wasn't even a done deal. But the deciding phase of sending the manufacturing to Mexico is also a sticking point, where Trump has been very clear on the fact that he wants to make America the premier manufacturing dominance here in our country. And the only way that government actually has as a tool in order to do that is to either make things very business friendly here in the United States, but also to make it very foreign business unfriendly, meaning in the idea of the tariffs. And so that's kind of what he is talking about here. And what she is talking about there, as far as like adding the tariffs. Now, one thing that she doesn't talk about in terms of the tariffs is the fact that Joe Biden and the Biden administration carried over many of the tariffs. Sorry, 3 Chevy asked me a question. To answer your question, because 3 Chevy pointed out that she's got the same style earrings on that she had at the debate. So he asked, Rick, is it possible to scan Bluetooth for her earring frequency, asking for a friend? Yes, it is possible. And yes, I could probably do it. Anyway, moving on. So, but anyway, so, you know, again, just to continue on with this over and over and over again, all she did, she never really answered anything. Okay. And, so it's, I just don't, she repeated a whole bunch of platitudes. That's really what it was. And so anyway, there's one last clip here. I want to talk about point out the price gouging, not the price gauging, but the price gouging.
Going after those who engage in price gouging. Yeah. But as somebody who supports free markets, who's a capitalist, how do you go after price gouging without implementing price controls? Because once we get in this zone, people start to get worried and they say, I don't know what she stands for.
So just to be very frank, I am never going to apologize for going after companies and corporations that take advantage of the desperation of the American people. And as Attorney General, I saw this happen. In the midst of an emergency, whether it be an extreme weather event or even the pandemic, we saw it, where those few companies, not the majority, not most, but those few companies that would take advantage of the desperation of people and jack up prices. Yeah, I'm going to go after them. Yes, I'm going to go after them. And that is part of a much more comprehensive plan on what we can do to bring down the cost of living, including housing, including the everyday needs of the American people.
Coming up.
Okay, so where did she say she was going to go after companies doing price gouging? Except there isn't any price gouging. I mean, price gouging admittedly is already an illegal activity, and companies can be taken to court already over it. So again, she just didn't explain anything. She didn't elaborate on her more comprehensive plan. So anyway, she also doesn't understand that the fact that, putting on price caps on businesses where they can't make any money off of things, they're not going to carry those products, or they're not going to make those products. It's been tried before, multiple times, even in communist socialist countries. But hey, that's the Marxist in her coming out, as far as that goes. All right. Yeah. So anyway, gosh. All right. Let me go ahead and move on here to my next wonderful set of information here. So obviously, we've had a lot of things go through the news cycle and that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. 3 Chevy, the Nixon wage price freeze. Yeah. So anyway, Mayor Eric Adams, his administration has been under investigation for the last several weeks. Well, it's now culminated to an indictment. And his indictment was unsealed today. Federal agents, of course, had been searching his official residence. That happened early this morning. The operation occurred just hours before the indictment itself was unsealed. And so what apparently the indictment has alleged is that Adams knowingly solicited campaign contributions from Turkish foreign nationals beginning in 2018 in the lead up to his 2021 run for mayor. Federal prosecutors further allege that Adams and his campaign conspired to hide the illegal contributions through straw donors and fake paper trails. Now, for those of you that don't know what straw donor is, it's basically fake names and addresses. Something that, like, for an example, that Act Blue has been accused of doing, is you basically have like a very large donor, meaning somebody who's going to submit a huge amount of money to your campaign, but you can't do that because you have campaign contribution caps. And so what you do is you create a list of fake donors known as straw donors and separate out that one big payment into multiple little ones that technically don't have don't have any way of tracking it. And then of course you got to make the paper trail and stuff like that too, which is exactly what they are accusing him of. And apparently this was in exchange, according to the indictment, in exchange for financial support from representatives of the Turkish government. Adams is allegedly pressured officials in the fire department of New York to approve Turkey's consulate building in Manhattan, despite alleged safety issues. Furthermore, the indictment alleges that Adam used illegal foreign donations to fraudulently increase the public matching funds of his campaign that his campaign received during the 2021 election. And they also claim that New York City mayor received not just financial kickbacks through the campaign finance scheme, but was also granted other benefits from Turkish officials, including free or discounted travel on Turkish airlines. So, the charging document reportedly contains a bevy of evidence detailing Adams' free luxury hotel stays, transportation clandestinely provided by the Turkish government. Already several individuals close to the New York City mayor have either been raided by federal law enforcement, forced to resign, or have pleaded guilty to campaign finance charges. Now, Eric Adams has said that he's not going to quit. So he's already come out publicly and said that he's not going to quit on this. So what happens to Eric Adams? Well, according to the Washington Examiner, he is the first sitting mayor in the city's history to be indicted. And despite the growing calls to resign, of course, Adam has insisted that he's not going to. The New York City Charter also doesn't allow voters to remove Adams prematurely. And the indictment itself doesn't require him to resign either. So the only person who has the power to remove Eric Adams is Governor Kathy Hochul. Now, Hochul has acknowledged the indictment in a relatively vague statement where she says that she is aware of the concerning news reports and is monitoring the situation through her press secretary, Avi Small. Avi Small continued and said it would be premature to comment further until the matter is confirmed by law enforcement. Now, under the city charter, Hochul has the authority to remove Adams for up to 30 days and then remove him after service upon him of a copy of the charges and an opportunity to be heard in his defense, according to the New York Times. No, it's Avi Small or AV Small, AVI Small. That's what it is. But anyway, so this power apparently has never been used. The closest time that it possibly could have happened would have been in 1931 when then Governor Franklin Delano Roosevelt held 14 days of hearings regarding the alleged corruption of Mayor Jimmy Walker, which pushed him to resign before further action could be taken. And we all know that Hochul won't do anything, more than likely. So anyway, we'll see what happens. This is a developing story, obviously, and yeah, things are going to be interesting moving on from here. So the mayor also made a comment where he said, "I will fight these injustices with every ounce of my strength and my spirit. If I'm charged, I know I am innocent. I will request immediate trials so the New Yorkers can hear the truth," he said on a video statement last night. So he's been indicted. He is now charged, and we'll see what happens moving forward. But apparently there's no way, other than Kathy Hochul, there's no way to get him out of office. So some disturbing information came out with regards to the Secret Service. We're just going to move right into this. And January 6th, by the way. First of all, the Inspector General, this from the Epoch Times, has got a draft report. He did some testifying. His Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, testified to Congress and was being asked, who was asking questions and things like that. And he essentially basically said that he's reviewing the draft of the report and hopes that the report will be ready before January 20th of 2025. Now, he was asked some very specific questions, especially from Thomas Massie. And Thomas Massie asks some very poignant questions with regards to how many people, confidential human sources, CHSs is what they're called, how many confidential human sources were actually within the crowd. Horowitz didn't say. Horowitz did say that there were people there, confidential human sources, but he also did not say how many actually went into the Capitol. And Thomas Massie asked him about that. You know, did they go into the Capitol? Because the thing about confidential human sources is they have to kind of keep their nose clean. They can't break laws and be confidential human sources for the cops. You have to sort of keep your nose clean. You have to know about what's going on, but don't actually participate type idea. But anyway, the report that is supposed to come out, of course, Horowitz also fell on the sword of saying, well, I don't know what in the report is actually classified or not classified, so I can't talk about the report, even though it's in draft form, because it hasn't gone through classification and, of course, redaction. So, yeah. And Thomas Massie also makes a comment. He's like, you know, this is 4 years later. Come on, folks. I mean, This is 4 years later. Anyway. So, yeah, he announced that his office would be investigating the role of the Department of Justice in responding to the breach back on January 15th of 2021. So again, this is just one of many, which, by the way, I don't know if anybody has seen, but there's new reports coming out about the whole DNC bombing portion. So I'm telling you right now, I'm thinking, as far as this goes, this stinks to high heaven. This is sort of like covering up some of the major things that we've seen in our history, such as Watergate, the assassination of JFK, so on and so forth. It's yeah, I just don't see where we're going to gain anything back. I think they're kind of hoping that maybe Kamala Harris actually wins. But anyway, yeah, that's comments. U.S. Abby girl, you're right. She says they are Johnny on the spot, ready to release hit pieces on Trump before the election. Yeah, anything that is good or could be damaging to the Democrat Party, they're going to try and hold on to and not bring out. But of course, with Donald Trump, they'd be leaking like a sieve. So anyway, yeah, there is some evidence that the DNC bomber, of course, first of all, that somebody knows who that is. They won't tell who that is. There's some serious questions regarding that. And again, somebody like Dan Bongino, who has some experience in the special or the Secret Services, they basically are demonstrating that they are trying to prevent the public from knowing the real truth about what's going on. And speaking of the real truth about what's going on, do you guys remember that? I know there's been a lot of these things, so it's kind of hard to keep track and remember, but do you remember that Judge Engoron massive fraud payment that, Donald Trump got picked up by with Letitia James and, the whole inflating his real estate and all of this stuff? Remember that? Well, the appeals court finally made it to the appeals court, and they had in-person question answer sessions, and it doesn't seem like the appeals court is really all that on board with allowing this going. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. So here in the Epoch Times, appeals court seems skeptical of New York civil fraud suit against Trump. Some of the judges seem concerned that James may have exceeded her authority. Yeah. So they fielded questions. So this was today. So the appeals court or the appeals judges in the New York fielded multiple questions to the New York Attorney General's office, indicating that they were skeptical of its application of the anti-fraud law of former President Donald Trump's business practices. The question came during oral arguments over Trump's claims that the state Supreme Court erred in handling the civil fraud case, which resulted in the $489 million penalty. And don't forget that $489 million penalty is being subject to interest payments as well, so it's much higher than that by now. Trump's attorney, John Sauer, told the 5-judge panel in the court's appellate division that the judge and the prosecutors flouted time limits on the claims involved. He noted that Attorney General Letitia James' office pressed an overly broad interpretation of illegally punishable fraud, and that regardless, the former president hadn't committed fraud in his dealings with banks and others. Now, don't forget that this also was questionable because there was no actual victim here in this. There was no actual victim in this. So some of the judges questioned whether or not the state was acting within the bounds of its authority or actually had a legitimate interest in bringing the suit. So one of the justices, David Friedman, pressed New York Deputy Solicitor General Judith Vale on whether or not there was any precedent for the Attorney General suing over the transactions involving sophisticated parties where, quote, neither one of them actually lost money. Now remember, the whole purpose of going to court like this is to recover damages that you have been subjected to because of the fact that somebody broke the law. And so, you know, the banks got on the stand. The people who did the investments, they got on the stand and they said during the trial, we made money. There's no fraud here. We got paid back. We got our interest back. We got everything back. There's nothing going on here. Essentially, nobody had there was no victim. There was not one single victim in this whole thing. Friedman pointed out every case that you cite involves damage to consumers, damage to the marketplace. We don't have anything like that here. Vale argued that there was absolutely a public impact and a public interest. She continued, there are at least 4 different public harms from the kind of misconduct here. Well, again, what misconduct? Every single real estate person and investor would tell you this is exactly how it works. I say how much I want for it. You evaluate it. If you think that I'm close and you're willing to take the risk, there you go. It's done. But anyway, Vale also added that when risk is injected into the market, that does hurt the counterparties and it does hurt the market as a whole. Well, Justice Peter Moulton asked, how do we draw the line or at least put up some guardrails to know when the AG is operating well within her admittedly broad sphere of 631.12, which is a New York executive law that is one of the statutes that James used in suing Trump. The statute itself allows the Attorney General to apply for court intervention when, quote, any person shall engage in repeated fraudulent or illegal acts or otherwise demonstrate persistent fraud or illegality in the carrying on, conducting, or transaction of business. Now, again, there was no victim here. There's nothing. They got their money back. Nobody lost money. They gained money. In fact, they continued to do business with Donald Trump after these transactions. Anyway, so it sounds based on the conversation that they're not convinced that this was a just scenario. They also brought into question, by the way, about the $439 million. One of the justices or one of the appeals court justices said, yeah, that sounds a little excessive. So, yeah, we're just going to have to kind of see where this goes. But I mean, again, it doesn't seem to be too convincing to the appeals court. So don't be surprised if in a little while you hear that all of a sudden that this was overturned, which, I mean, most people who have brains and a common sense and logic and reason, they actually know all of this. So at least, you know, again, for right now, this is just early assumptions based on the questions and the line of questioning, but it does appear that there's at least some skepticism there for this. All right. Let me go ahead Yeah, let me go ahead and just tell you about this wonderful company that I'm wearing one of their shirts. I'm wearing the flag, the U.S. flag colored shirt here on the program. Of course, this is one of the cotton men's polo shirts that they provide. The company is called theflagshirt.com. That's right, theflagshirt.com. And theflagshirt.com is where you need to go to check out all of their patriotic styles of apparel in men's, women's, and children's clothing and accessories. If you go to theflagshirt.com and buy $75 worth or more of their product, they will give you free shipping. But I know a lot of people don't want to necessarily buy $75 worth of stuff. So I am giving you a special coupon code that you can get at flagshirt.americanperspective.online. That's right. Flagshirt.americanperspective.online will get you a special coupon code from me that you can enter into the checkout promo code box at theflagshirt.com and get yourself $5 off your order. No matter what the order is, you can still get the $5 off by using the promo code that you find at flagshirt.americanperspective.online. Grab that, put it into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com, and you will be able to get $5 off your order if you decide to purchase. Go to theflagshirt.com and check out all of their patriotic styles and apparel wear. They've got some great fall items, you know, hoodies and pullovers for the coming cooler months. So go ahead and go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right. Well, one of the problems that we have with the left, and believe me, there's a lot of them, but one of the biggest problems that we have with the left is literally the meanings of words. And the left is really good at hijacking language in order to try and make things to their advantage. One of the things that they talk about, of course, is the word racist. You know, everything is racist. If you just disagree with somebody who happens to be of a different skin color than you, that's immediately racist. But what they don't tell you, of course, is that you can't be racist against a white person. Another word that they use often is freedom. There's an opinion piece in Town Hall that sort of describes how this kind of works. So what the left means by freedom is not what the American value system means in freedom. Because, of course, the left and any of the Democrats, they all talk about how they believe in freedom. Well, the Chinese believe in freedom. Hitler himself mentioned freedom. And they keep, of course, talking about Donald Trump, who is trying to destroy our freedom. Well, everybody, of course, can get on board with believing in freedom. But that's the problem. Because the left doesn't actually mean, by the word freedom, the same thing that a traditional God-fearing American means by the word freedom. If you ask a leftist about freedom, you will probably both use the same word. And that leftist will almost surely say that Trump himself will destroy our freedom. But here's the problem. The left means, to the left, freedom means government allows you to do what you do. Meaning that if you have freedom, that's because government has given you the opportunity to go ahead and do whatever it is that you're talking about. For them, freedom also means being able to be free of things such as morality. being free of constraints such as ethics, standards, to be free of things such as responsibility and accountability. This is what free and freedom mean to the left. However, if you read our founding documents, in particular, things like the Declaration of Independence, where it talks about the opportunity, or where it talks about the principle where all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their creator, meaning God, with certain inalienable rights. That's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that comes from the Declaration of Independence in the preamble of that. So to America's founders and to most Americans who actually value what the founders created, our rights come from God. Our rights are not given to us by government because, again, they believed in the principles that you have natural law or God's law, and then underneath that you would have man's law. And that's not what the left believes. The left, of course, for the most part, doesn't even believe in God. They believe that man's law or government is the God to which you should be worshiping. And that the God that you should be responsible to is government, not God. So this is why we have so many problems with the left, is because they redefine words, and our words do not mean the same as their words. And so this is why when you hear the left talk about freedom, just keep in mind, their definition of freedom is not the same definition as what a conservative's definition of freedom would be. To them, freedom, again, is freedom to do whatever the hell you want to do within government limits, but that also means that you don't have any accountability, responsibility, morality, ethics, standards, integrity, etc. And these are just the start of the split between us, between the two sides. And this is where the division is really exacerbated, because even though we use the same words, they mean totally different things to the two different sides. All right, folks, that is it for me. Prayers up for anybody who is in Helene's path, okay? Because I know that she's going to get worse before she gets better. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free to sign up, and once you sign up and log in, hunt up the American Perspective channel, and make sure you hit that green follow button. Also, too, before you take off, make sure you hit all those thumbs up likes and like buttons and, hey, this is cool. Apparently I've just been told she's been upgraded to a category 4. Yeah, prayers for all of you. I hope to be able to see you tomorrow night. Speaking of tomorrow night, I will be broadcasting 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on American Perspective. Prayers for everybody, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a great night. And good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.